So what are the ground rules we're going to be using? Now that I've told you why I think ground rules are important, I'm going to give you a set of ground rules that I found to be quite useful. I wish I could tell you that I've made them up all myself, but they come from a colleague of mine by the name of Judith Katz and her colleague Fred Miller. They're with the Kaleel Jamison Consulting Company. And they have been using these ground rules for a very long time. I've added a couple things at the bottom, but the first 8 or 9 of them are theirs. It says, first thing you want to do is be fully present. So if you're going to be in a learning experience, you want to make certain that you give it everything you can so that so that you can get the most out of it, and the other participants can enjoy your presence as much as possible. Be self-responsible for changing. If there's something that you learn here or you've brought to this seminar, or something that you'd like to put more into practice, and you find an opportunity to do so, this is the place where you can actually do it and get a lot of support for it. No matter how ragged you actually do it, I'm going to be your champion to help you be able to get to the next level with it. So try to challenge yourself to do some of the things that you would otherwise feel a little bit uncomfortable doing. Listen, 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 and then respond. What many times happen is that folks start saying or doing things in the seminar that we feel rub against our own values and beliefs. And when we're listening to them, what happens is that we begin to start thinking about how we can fix them before we've fully heard them. So one of the things I try to get people to do is to actually put that aside for a while and put all your focus on listening to the other person. And if you can do that, you will find yourself being able to paraphrase back what the person said. If you can do that, you know you've really listened. So that's the ultimate in listening. And you don't want to cut them off before they're done. If they are trying to tell you to speak their truth and share something with you, treat it as a gift rather than as something that you have to challenge. So if you do something like that, what you'll find is that you are in a better position to not only connect with the person, but you're going to learn a lot more from the experience. Lean into discomfort. What I mean by that is that to the extent that things come up that are comfortable for you, you're going to want to be able to challenge yourself on that through that discomfort. You want to be able to use this experience to better understand why you're uncomfortable and what you can do in order to push through it. For the sake of getting better at this work, because there's always going to be something uncomfortable that comes up. And you want to model how to get through it rather than to be hooked into it. I just talked about something similar, experiment with new behaviors. You find something that in here that you can actually use and practice using here, please do so. Take risks, be ragged, and let go. So if you're going to try something new, for example, try it. Just do the best you can. And if it doesn't come out the best as well as you wanted it to come out, I'm going to be the one to help you do that if you want to try it again. But don't hold on to it. It's not worth it because it'll just get in the way of you trying it again the next time. Accept working through conflict. We probably won't have much here. But if it does happen, what I want you to know is that we talk our way through it. And the best way to talk your way through it is just find out what the other person is coming from and why their position is of value to them. If you can just get that and be okay with that, that's all you need, because it doesn't mean you have to agree. But there's no reason why you still can't connect and let each other know that you at least understand where they're coming from, whether you support it or not, or you want to take it on as something of value to you. Be crisp and to the point. I'm going to do most of the talking here by default. When we're talking and sharing, what I hope to happen is that we say what we need to say and allow enough time for other participants to talk as well. Be open-minded. There's going to be a lot of things shared here. Some of the things may not even be something that you fully appreciate. At the same time, what I believe would be most valuable to you as someone who's come here to learn some things is just try it on for size. That won't hurt to just try it on for size. Be open for trying on for size. And if it's not something that works out for you after you've tried it out, then you at least know that why it doesn't work for you. Next one is be soft on people and hard on the problem. Well, what do I mean by that? What happens a lot is that if someone says something or does something that irritates us or goes against our own values and beliefs, what we tend to do is we tend to see that person as a problem. We do personality stuff. We'll say, oh, they're rigid, or they're prejudiced, or, we have all kinds of names for it, right? What I'd like for you to entertain is that there's something that happened between you and that person that's the real problem. So how can you better understand the problem so that you don't have to personalize it so much? Because we can't really. It's very, very difficult to work through things when we are attacking each other as people. But it's much easier to challenge ourselves when we can see what the barriers are between us that keeps us from understanding each other well. Let me give you an example. That was many years ago when I was university teacher. I was doing these undergraduate general education controversy courses. Everybody had to take them, mandatory. I think you had to take 3 of them. And it was in Orange County, California, so it was like a conservative, to say the least. On top of that, there was not much diversity in there, right? We're talking about the 80s, right? So I had these kids, and they'd have, you're in conservative Orange County, so people speak up. They've always spoke up there. So they really didn't like affirmative action. Especially, it was like a real hot topic in those days. So this one young white woman, she just spoke her mind about it. And I think he was like the only African American in the room. He turned around and he goes, "That was a racist thing to say." And it kind of stopped. Everybody kind of stopped. And she looked like she didn't know what to do at the moment. So I kind of intervened and said, okay, it's clear that she spoke her mind and you've spoken your mind. But what happened after that? So we analyzed the fact that, everything shut down the whole bit. I said, well, how could we have done something differently? I said, can I ask you to ask her where her values are coming from around what she said about affirmative action? Of course, she said the typical thing like, I'm into fairness, I'm into treating people equally, I don't believe in one group getting more of an advantage over others, and etc. So then I asked him to listen to her, right? And I can tell he wanted to jump in, but he listened. And then I asked people in the room, I said, anybody else want to share her, who share similar beliefs? You want to interject and say more about that? Some people did, and some people were counter to. I said, well, let's hold on to that for a while. So then I asked him to give his own values and beliefs about the topic. So he talked about how that's been historical wrong, and that the playing field and level. I mean, both of them gave wonderful arguments, right? So afterwards, I said, and I asked the audience to jump in. They said some things, and afterwards I says, okay, what have you both learned about each other from this exchange? And she said something about, if I recall correctly, she said something about how her family had always talked that way, in the way that she spoke. And that now she can see by the discussion that she hasn't really done her own thinking behind it. And she saw it as a good experience to think about things for herself. And he thought about it, and he said something about how he has a tendency to jump to conclusions about people very quickly on the basis of what they say. And now that she's talked about her family and her background, how she got there, he felt like basically he was saying I was treating her unfairly, And the entire audience then got into a whole discussion about how our families we kind of internalize many of their beliefs and values because we love them, and how that sets us up for not thinking about ourselves, and how that leads to jumping to conclusions and things. So the whole darn thing became a really nice teachable moment. So at that point in time, they moved from being hard on each other to being soft on each other. So the real problem was that we've learned a lot of stuff that we brought into this classroom, and it ain't ours because we can make another choice any moment in time, but instead we've internalized it, and only at this moment we realize that it's baggage that we don't really need. That became the topic of discussion and the lesson to be learned. So by listening to people carefully enough, and by arresting attempts to pathologize people and to do personality stuff, and focus on listening to each other and what's said and intended behind the words, we have a much better chance of breaking down some of those barriers to understanding. And lastly, honor confidentiality. And what that means is that if you're going to have a learning community, which is all these are, you want to be able to create an environment within which people can share some things about themselves that actually expose them in a way that they may not feel comfortable about under normal circumstances, but they felt that this was an opportunity and a safe place to do it. If they do that, again, it's a gift. So I normally do this with people who work together. I'll say, so if you go out and you start talking about this person, but that includes this group too, you go out and you start talking about this person, and it gets back to them, their feelings are going to be hurt because they entrusted their something very personal with you. So keep it behind these doors. Now, if it's a lesson that others can learn from, you still want to do one or two things. Either keep it completely anonymous so they have no clue about who it is, or you ask the person if you can share it, which would be even better, and still keep it anonymous, right? Because you never can tell when your audience is going to bump up against that person in some way and say, I know who you're talking about, right? So honor confidentiality. Now, you like these rules? Think we can live by these for the remaining time we're together? Would you like to take something out? Would you like to add something? Now, if we choose to add something later on, we can, all right?